Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Tamara Beydoun. She is a certified functional medicine and somatic trauma-informed coach who is also a certified narcissistic abuse coach, and she's also a writer. A beautiful writer at that. She has written lots of articles, and currently you're participating in a book. So that will be the opening of our conversation. But before that, Tamara, a question that I love asking everyone is, how would you introduce yourself? Who are you in your own words as of this moment?
Yeah, that changes every minute. But I think I would really like to say that firstly and foremostly, I am a mother of three incredible children. And I say that because my three kids have really, really been my biggest teachers. And not only are they my biggest teachers, but during my darkest moments, they gave me so much inner strength that I never thought I had. So I would like, first of all, to start by saying I am a very proud mother of three and so grateful for my three children. And secondly, I would say that I am, like you presented me, a functional medicine health coach, a somatic trauma informed coach, and a narcissistic abuse coach. And my focus really is on mostly healing and empowering others through self compassion. I believe, and that's my own personal experience as well, that without self compassion, change and healing is impossible. So that's the main stepping stone into my work. And I also work a lot with positive psychology. Our mind is extremely powerful. Changing mindsets is very important in any work, whether it's well being work or trauma work. And so this is, and I feel that we are living in challenging times, but I also believe in the power and the strength of kindness. And a lot of my work comes really from there. Like the world needs kindness and it takes strength to be kind, contrary to how society frames it. So, yeah, I would say this is me. I'm originally Lebanese Palestinian and I live in Switzerland. I've lived in many countries and I'm very grateful to be here where I am today.
I love that. What's not to love about that, too? This very end about gratitude. There's something about a state of mind, of being, that's grateful for existence itself, from life itself, that it really changes everything. Um, Gosh, I want to talk about the book, but before that, you mentioned kindness, self-compassion. What is the difference between them?
To me, kindness is really, I mean, self-compassion. Many people, and I wrote an article, as you know, about that. Many people confuse self-compassion with selfishness. It's like nothing to do. Self-compassion is really, really being kind to yourself. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to a friend. And it's crazy how often most of us don't. So pause, be aware, and like even jokingly, sometimes we say things, oh, I'm so stupid. I'm like, no, I'm not stupid. These words matter. Words are very powerful, and the words we speak to ourselves are extremely important. So self compassion is also accepting all of you, like even the parts that you don't like, being compassionate and kind towards these parts. They belong as well. The hard emotions, the darkness that we carry. We all have darkness in us. And that's okay. That's being human. And accepting that is so important. And we tend to fight that all our lives. But it also belongs. There's no black without white. There's no darkness without light. So everything belongs. There's no love without hate, unfortunately. And being compassionate about all these elements is very important. So that's self-compassionate. Kindness is actually acts of kindness. I mean, during my darkest moments, what mattered to me a lot was really going down to the coffee shop and having a little chat, a little informal conversation with the barista. And it was very casual, but there was an exchange that was kind. And I would always think, my God, this person has no idea how dark my life is today. But this exchange, what meant so much, this kind exchange that was respectful, that is curious, that consisted of a smile, meant so much to me. It kept me going in these difficult times. So despite life's challenges, and we all go through dark times, ups and downs, just acts of kindness, a smile. Sometimes I walk down the street and I make eye contact with a stranger. I smile. I can honestly tear up. And I'm not exaggerating. And this is what matters. Like, you might be in a coffee shop and the person behind you, their card is not working. And this happened actually a few days ago. And I said, I'll offer you a coffee. But, I'm not doing it for her. It gives me pleasure. There's so much, to me at least, and I think to many, you give without expectations is an act of kindness, and it's so meaningful. It brings joy. So I think that defines the difference. But I think for me, really, there's a big misunderstanding in our society that people who are kind are weak. And I think it's exactly the contrary. People who are kind are the ones who have a lot of strength to be kind in this world. And let's keep going in that direction.
Yes. Wow. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for the clarity, shedding the light, within those topics and going really like, you're going more in this, to the realm of a big picture. It feels very natural to me. To me, that's what's natural is really like nature that gives, is very welcoming, is very nurturing. So that's when humans can be that way, kind, curious, joyful. That's the expression of natural being. How we're coming
Yes.
from a natural place. That's what comes to me over and over again as a message, being more natural.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's our core self. In therapy, we call that we're born with that, with care, with curiosity, with compassion. And for whatever reasons, we all build layers of protection. So we lose ourselves along the way because we're protecting ourselves. And again, we need to be compassionate towards these protectors. But at some point, when we're a bit older and we know we can take care of ourselves, slowly, and this is the work, we can shed these layers and tell them it's fine, I'm safe. And reconnect with that, with the core self.
Yes. Wow. There's a lot to say about safety, right? That space that we feel safety within, safety
Yes.
outside, in our
Yes.
houses, in our community, within our family, friends, in the world. Yes, that's another big topic. But I would like for you to talk to me about the book. I know that's something that just came up. I didn't know. So the
Me
topic
too.
now is reclaiming one's voice. Let's change that
Yes.
around. So talk to me about this new beautiful journey.
So there's a famous publisher who's in the UK called Sir Marco Robinson. And he's he's had a few bestsellers himself, even Netflix bestsellers. And he's releasing 10 books called Start Over, Turn Any Loss into a Sensational Comeback. And there's a series of them, 10 books. Each book contains 14 chapters. Each chapter represents an author and an author's journey. So they interview you, they verify your story, and we all have unique stories. My story is not different. I mean, it's different, it's unique, but everyone has a story to tell. So my story was accepted and I wish to share it. And so my chapter I'm going to be in book 9, which is not due to be published until end of the year. And my chapter is called Rising from the Ruins, My Voice, My Terms. And I mean, I've spoken to other authors. They are all such beautiful stories of real empowerment, resiliency. Every story is very different, but at the end of the day, surely every story will resonate with one person at least. And that person who's going to read that story will feel not alone. Like, oh, others have gone through and have come out of it. So to me, I'm writing this chapter because I would like to give hope to others when at moments I felt I had really very little hope.
Where to begin with the questions when it comes to reclaiming one's voice, being true to your heart, being true, being natural. So, what would you say is the first step, if there is one step? What feels natural to begin with?
I think the first step to reclaim one's voice is to heal your traumas. There is no other way. And healing your traumas is not an easy journey. It's hard. Sometimes, often you have to do it alone. I mean, alone. You're never alone. There is a community, but the work is, even if you have 10 therapists, they can't do the work for you. I mean, the emotions you're going to feel, the purging, that has to come from you, and you have to be open for it. So the way, I mean, I just a little bit of background on the issue of voice and somehow why I feel I've lost. I've always been a very chatty person. So in reality, I've always had a voice, but I didn't have a voice when it mattered. So as a child, I was born in Lebanon, and my mother is Palestinian. My father is Lebanese, beautiful family, but there was war. And with war came a lot of displacement. So we were moving around back and forth, back and forth. Not easy for a child, to connect with friends, to make connections, to have, to feel as part of a community. Now, with the war came, unfortunately, some situations where on my side, I was exposed literally to AK-7 being pointed at me, and I was screaming from fear. And the guy said to my father, I was 7, 8, maybe 9, if she doesn't stop crying, I'm going to shoot her. So that's the message I received. So to me, the message was, you don't express your feelings and you don't express your voice, you silence it. And again, I mean, other situations where childhood sexual abuse. Often with sexual abuse, they put their hands literally on your mouth so you don't shout. So, I mean, it took me a long time to understand why I struggled to express important. My boundaries did not exist. I didn't know what boundaries were. This is what I mean when I'm talking about your voice, reclaiming your voice, saying no, expressing your needs. So I sort of, I mean, that happened in early days. I was abused 3 times by 3 different people who were very trusted people, some very close people to the family, some even family members, yeah. And I was often, like on one occasion, I wanted to express what happened. And the person who sexually abused me, I was 7, told the people who were caring for me, I was in a boarding school, no, I was helping her. And nobody believed me, and they believed him. So again, these were very profound messages of your voice does not matter. Keep it quiet. Gaslighting. So this happened, then, I built very powerful patterns of being very charming, looking confident, but in reality, deep down, I was completely lost. And then I married my ex. We were together for 30 years. And we had what I thought was an amazing relationship. And the reality was that it wasn't. It was all a lie, a scam. He had a double life for at least 10 years, maybe longer. And whenever I tried to express my needs or my concerns, a lot of emotional and psychological abuse was happening. Like, oh, so my childhood traumas were used against me. Oh, you're so broken. Oh, you need to do the work. So, and that, I mean, the reality, so I've always, because the reality is I chose this person to be my husband and to be the father of my children. Why did I choose that person? And I remember very clearly once I was doing some very deep work with unconventional medicine. And it was very clear to me why I chose him. This person represented the voice I did not have. He was a very outspoken person. He was also very, very okay expressing even, like, I come from a culture that we had to respect, there's a lot of shame in doing certain things. You have to behave in a certain way. This person was able to, he didn't care about social norms. He did what he wanted. And I loved that because I couldn't. So he gave me the tools and I learned from him. So I'm very grateful. He showed me how I can. He does it in a much more aggressive way, but I found my own tone after 30 years. So he came into my life. I mean, okay, it was very difficult separating from him, divorce, all that was very difficult. But I really needed something from him in this lifetime. And he gave me that. And ironically, actually, I feel I've really reclaimed my voice, but through the divorce and through the separation with him, my power was actually not to use my voice. Silence was my power. I went no contact. I never replied to his emails. I just went no contact. So that's sort of my journey. And, through that, I ended up, following the divorce, I was in a very dark place. I felt I was shattered into a million pieces. But this was my time to rebuild myself. And to me, I feel visually, it was like I always had that image of being in a paper shredder. It's like somebody put me in a paper shredder. And then I had to rebuild the pieces. But the beauty of it now was that I can rebuild them under my terms. And I rebuild them in many ways, I think, to how I was when I lost that person, when I lost that voice. And in many ways, I'm very happy now where I am in my life. Of course, I would have much rather not had that experience, but that experience was necessary, I think. So that led me to becoming a coach, to doing all my certifications. And, a few years ago, if you had told me this would be me, I would have thought, no way. If this happened to me with my ex, I would be shattered. I would not be able to rebuild my life. So the message here is, if I can, anyone can. I'm not any different. But it's really, really tapping into your inner strength, being aligned with the person you are. And to me, the power of speaking your truth and, doing this podcast is that I find that by not doing that for years and years and years, I carried other people's shame. But I didn't do anything shameful. Why do I have to carry it? So I feel this is an exercise where I'm giving it back to them. And it feels lighter. Because we often tend to carry the weight, because we want to protect others, we carry their shame. And this is what bullying is about. Like, we don't speak out. We're protecting them. We're scared. But in fact, there is so much freedom in speaking out, because You don't need to carry that. So this is, where, in short, how we often say that, unfortunately, it is through really, really dark moments that we reconnect with something very precious and the meaning of life as well. Something changes. And, when you do that, when you've been through an experience like that, there's something very humble about it. And really, it's a wake up call to what matters in life. Like having conversations, having people in your life that are important, that, you look for something different. And honestly, since that, I don't know how, I think I believe in manifestation a lot. And I've always said I wanted like a community of sisterhood. And I don't know where these friends came from. Some are old, but I've ended up having so many friends. And I can tell you, I have friends who are 30 years old, so closer in age to my children, and, 60, 70 years old. And these connections really, really mean so, so much to me. So, yeah, I mean, something shifts when life sometimes throws at you some difficult situations. Something shifts, and you end up tasting the world differently, tasting it and seeing it, and seeking different experiences. I mean, I sometimes walk down, I'd be walking and I can see the color of the sky. And honestly, I could sit, look at it, and cry because it's so beautiful. I don't think I had that 5 years ago.
The taste of life, yeah, tasting it differently because there's so many colors and so many flavors, right, to life.
Mm,
Being able to taste it all, right, and the appreciation for all these colors. I love the way you talk about without the experience you had, you might have not awakened this natural beauty in you or this natural perception of the world in yourself
mm,
and other people. So that's something that I have been, because it has been my own experience too, and so many people that I talk about, that I talk with, that I commune with. So I wonder if we can learn how to navigate this reality of relationships, especially in a healthy way, without the darkness, without
mm.
attracting, people that are opposites, so we can learn. Can we learn? Is that what you're doing these days? Teaching other people to learn from inspiration instead of
I think,
suffering?
yeah, I mean, I would say when it comes to relationships, what I've learned is the first relationship you need to have is with yourself. You cannot have a relationship with anyone else if you're not in relationship with yourself. And most of us are not. And when I speak of relationships with yourself, is really, really tuning in to what do I need? What, I mean, we all get triggers a lot. We all do. What is this? I find, and I mean, it's a fact, triggers are messengers. So when somebody activates you, someone says, why, if you feel so activated, what is the message here? What is happening? Because it's something in your nervous system that is trying to express itself. And it often goes back to past experiences. And it's getting curious about that. And that's what I mean when we talk about relationship with yourself. So I mean, I'm not the expert in relationships. I had a very difficult relationship myself. But my learning is always start by setting boundaries. And if somebody who respects your boundaries is a green flag. Try setting boundaries with someone who will not accept them, and you'd better run from that relationship. Say no to something. And people who are more, I mean, we work with different attachment styles. You have the secure attachment, you have the avoidant. We all aim to be insecure, attachment styles. Somebody who is secure will welcome you expressing your needs, and will try to work with you on how this person can support you, and vice versa. But you feel safe expressing your needs. If you're in a relationship where you cannot express your needs because you're scared how it will land, how would that person take, and I'm not talking only about intimate, I'm talking about friendships, I'm even talking about business colleagues. To me, and I never knew what boundaries were. And I remember the moment I started expressing boundaries, because I understood that boundaries existed. Finally, I was like, I remember the first time I understood boundaries, I made a list of like, okay, these are things I won't accept anymore. I wish I still kept that list. I was like so proud, like, oh, finally I can express my needs and it's crazy how this landed the first time with that person. I was told, oh my God, your timing is terrible. I had a long day and now you want to sit and talk about your boundaries? Now, of course, I'm like, oh my God, this was like such a red flag. So really, and I think this is where you're also very self-compassionate. And that's when you're in relationship with yourself. So that's what I would say about relationships. It starts with a relationship with yourself.
That's a big one. What comes to mind is teaching children to do that from
Oh
an
yeah,
early age so they don't have
yeah,
to learn later on, right?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, one tool that I found like really, really so simple, and they use it for kids as well. And it's an amazing first, and I wrote an article about that. To me, it was one of the first stepping stones into emotions. Because most of us, believe it or not, data says that if you ask people to express feelings, most have 3 words only in their vocabulary. So we need to really, really teach kids and even adults a vocabulary of feelings. And I don't know if you're familiar with nonviolent communication and Marshall Rosenberg. So that is an amazing tool for firstly people, kids or adults, to tune into their feelings, to own their feelings, and then to understand the needs behind them. And it's very simple. And this can be easily taught to kids. In my coaching, I often, when I'm working with younger people or any age actually, we can even do role playing on like a challenging situation, and how they can express their feelings without blaming the other, so the other person on the receiving end can receive it without any tension, without being without being defensive. And there's a lot of power in that.
Right. Gosh, what would be a good example of that, Tamara? What comes to mind? That's a simple way to understand this through an example.
Okay, so I mean, with Marshall Rosenberg's, it's a 4-step process. Let's say I have a friend, and she triggered me because she very simply came late to a meeting. And I waited 10 minutes and I felt very frustrated. That's a very simple example. And she comes late, and I wanted to express that I felt angry. So the first thing with the process is you need to agree with that person on an exact example. Because often when we talk to people, we often say, you're always late. But it always cannot be quantified. You have to make it what we call it an observation. It has to be an agreed upon. So I could tell that person, you came late on Tuesday. Am I right? She's going to agree. So we're already in agreement. Then I would express my feelings. So when you came late, I felt disrespected. I felt angry. I felt, you have a list of feelings, because I have a need to, whatever my need is. I have a need that, time is precious for me. And the need behind that is for you to respect our agreement on the time. And then as a fourth step, you make a request. So can we in the future make sure that if you're running late, you let me know beforehand, for example? And that's a typical example. So with children, that works really well. It's easy. And what's more important is that you're really, really enhancing their vocabulary of feelings and needs, and you're letting them own their feelings. So nobody can come and tell you, no, you're not allowed to feel angry. But I mean, I feel angry. You might not feel angry if somebody is late. Some people don't care. I feel angry. I own it. Don't come and tell me I'm not allowed. And this can work in so many ways. I mean, in relationships, like, if you feel like you're in intimate relationship, let's say your partner does not respond to your messages, or, you can express yourself, but you, instead of blaming that person, you turn it back to you and you express how you feel about it, because maybe that person doesn't feel the same way. So he or she might not understand you if you're blaming them. But if you're telling them, I'm feeling that way, you're opening a conversation.
Yes. Yeah. That's very clear to me. Gosh, I love this framework, the approach that's not really a framework, but it's the approach to life where we can guide one another to kindness, to this natural space in us of love, really. So, I know it because it's not really possible, although we have tried, to make everybody come from that place. We can't force anything to happen. So we cannot ask people to heal themselves and do the work, but we can behave in a way that could inspire them to come from a place that's more in harmony with what is happening in the moment, in that specific situation, as you said. So taking one situation at a time and not trying to make, let's say, conclusions, right, about the entirety of whatever it is.
Yeah, and it's empowering, actually. I mean, firstly, you're given the chance to express yourself. And it also allows you for really much deeper connections with others, because you're showing up with vulnerability. And when you show up with vulnerability and you start talking about feelings, often people will do the same. We all have that need to talk about how we feel, but we're scared.
Yeah. Huh. And from your experience, even the people that don't have enough empathy, are they still able? Because I know psychopaths are not able to express empathy, right? They are not. That's not something that they understand. Their brains understand. So, but would you say that somebody with a narcissistic personality disorder or narcissistic traits, would they be able to kind of take that leap of faith and become?
Unfortunately, regretfully, you can't communicate boundaries with a narcissist. They might fake empathy. They do that very well, especially psychopathic narcissists, because they are putting themselves in your shoes. So they can fake it if it matters to them. And if they're getting something out of it, remember that with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, it's transactional. It's all about what they're getting from it. So if they're getting something from you, they need something, yes, they can fake it. But the reality is you can, boundaries and saying no to someone with NPD, they would never agree to it. They would turn it around and make it about you. You have the problem. You have the issues. You did that. I mean, even if you're setting a boundary and you have the proof that they went wrong, no, how dare you? You got the proof that they went wrong. Why did you look in their pockets? So then the story changes to, why did you look in their handbag or whatever, their phone? And very manipulatively, the situation changes and it becomes about you being in the wrong. And I mean, I'm not a therapist. I've done narcissistic abuse coaching. Working with people who are narcissistic in therapy is very difficult. for therapists. So there are programs for that, and you have very few therapists who specialize in that. But remember that most narcissists would never go to therapy because they don't have a problem. The problem is with everyone else. That is the biggest problem with NPD. That, I mean, if I have issues, psychological, mental issues, and I want to work on myself, I will go to a therapist and I acknowledge that I'm having issues. That's the first stepping stone into healing. You need to be aware that there's something not right. With regards to people with NPD, it's never about them. And this is why it's so difficult for people with NPD to heal. Most don't. That's statistically speaking. Most never do.
Amazing. So it's a hopeless place there, to try to.
I mean, that's what I tell my clients. If they feel that they are with someone with NPD, their safety is very important. And if they want to leave the relationship, I'm not here to tell them what to do, but understand that that person is not going to change. Don't expect that person to change. They might apologize. They will hoover you back because that's what they do. But with the regret, change with and people. I mean, some of them go into therapy because it sounds good, because they think they're doing some work, but it's never about them. They will manipulate the therapist.
So, what is your vision for your big picture vision for this situation where we stand now in our relationships to everything, to ourselves, to our environment, to the community, to one another, to God? How do we turn that around?
I think really, really, I mean, I see the power of doing your own. There's so much healing in healing yourself. You heal yourself, and then there's a ripple effect. There's no way you will not have a positive impact on people around you. You show up differently. And this is, I mean, since I've started my own practice, I've always said, if only I can have an impact on one person, I've done my job. And there's no way you can't. It's impossible. I mean, you do the work on yourself first. Everything shifts around you. The way you talk to people is different. Because don't forget, when you've done some healing, and we're never fully healed. I mean, the work is constant. It's, layers and layers. But, automatically you're showing up differently. You're speaking from the heart. You're speaking with less protective layers. You've shed some really important, you're open. And if somebody comes and gives you a remark like, I'm feeling that way, would you mind, reacting or behaving differently next time? You're open to it. Because usually when we're not open to it and when we're contracted and shut, it's because we're scared and we're protecting ourselves. But when you've healed a big part of, your traumas, you're open. And when you're open, you connect to people differently. So relationships change and they become so much more authentic. And there's a flow that magically happens. I mean, today with my children, take a simple example. If my daughters and my son set boundaries with me, I celebrate it. I'm like, okay, well done. And I'm just so happy that they feel safe enough to do that. Because to be able to set boundaries with someone, it means you care for the relationship, but it means you feel safe that this person will not reject you because you're setting boundaries. So when you can do that, and you can only do that when you've done a lot of work on yourself, then you're opening to something very magical in human connections.
And I think that goes back to what you're saying. So we don't take anything personally. We are coming from this beautiful open space of just being here and grateful and appreciation for being here. And that overflows to me, that could overflow in the direction of helping our environment. And that's something that I feel very strong about it. You know, the earth and the way we're treating earth is, it goes back to the way we treat ourselves and others. So it's the relationship again. So we can bring to earth this energy of harmony again.
That's beautiful because, of course, we are so connected to everything. It's not only human connections. I mean, I get so much. I grew up in Beirut. There's no nature in Beirut itself. There was no nature. Lebanon has some beautiful landscape, but Beirut, it's a big city. And I didn't know how to connect with nature. But my God, the power of nature, being in nature, how grounding, how beautiful, how magical it is. And you know, there's something beautiful about that as well. It's that when you're in nature alone, because we all have also the fear of being alone, right? I mean, we're not meant to be alone. But actually, when you're in nature, you realize you're never alone. And we owe a lot to that, really.
I love that.
So,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we're never alone. Just by being nature, I mean, that's so to me heart fulfilling. It really is. There's something about the silence in nature that's not really silent. It speaks so
exactly.
loudly, right, in a powerful way. Yeah, I can't say enough. I'm just in love with nature. I always bring plants everywhere I go, like the rooms that I am. There's always, as a friend, they're friends to me. I really feel that way.
Yeah, and apparently, if you talk to them, there's a certain. Apparently, they are responsive.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Not with words, but there's something happens with that transmission.
energetically,
Right.
I'm
Yes.
sure.
Thank you so much again for saying yes to this conversation, for giving yourself to life the way you have given, and being generous with all the sharing of your path, your journey, and passing that on to others is truly, truly beautiful and very much needed. So thank you,
Thank you.
Tamara. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having
Thank
me
you.
here and for holding that space. That
Oh
means a lot.
gosh, I love doing this. What can I say? It's
I know.
I can't help
I
but
can
share
feel
that.
that you do. Even though you're in the US and I'm in Switzerland, energetically, I feel.
God, I can't help it. Yeah. I want to mention your website. So, Tamara Bay. Oh, yeah, .com. Is that what it is?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
Tamara Bay.
tamarabay.com.
Bey. I'll have that clickable. And then you are also on Instagram and LinkedIn. I have those two links
Yes.
here. I want to mention your services. So, is the book that you're writing? Do you have any idea when, at the end of the year?
At the end, it's going to be book 9, and it's supposed to be like the last quarter of the year. And Sir Marco Robinson is actually also doing a world tour promoting the book, and a lot of the authors will be invited on stage as well to talk. And I will be in one of these events.
But I want to mention your services too. So you welcome a discovery call, so anyone can curious or interested in your services, one-on-one private coaching and group coaching. Did I miss anything, Tamara?
No, so the discovery call is free, obviously. And then I recommend normally, because a lot of the work we do is either trauma related or behavioral change related. So I would normally recommend taking 6 or 12 sessions, packages, just so that you can see the change.
Yeah, that makes sense. Of course,
Yeah,
it's not a destination, right? It's a journey. There's a journey
exactly.
to it. So yes, I'll have all the links there. I want to thank you again for your beautiful
Thank
presence
you.
and our connection, and we'll talk
Thank
soon.
you.
We'll